All right. So what's up, Paul? How are you?
All good, man. How's the farm?
All good. All good. Thanks a million for coming on. Really appreciate it.
No hassle, no hassle. Yeah, just in the door ahead of you, like so. Sitting on a yoga mat rather than sitting on my chair because I've been in my car for like an hour and 15 minutes there. So, I'm feeling it. The back was too sore to sit at the kitchen table and chat to you. So, I'm sitting down,
Yeah.
relaxing the hips a little bit now.
Is the is the back something you struggle with a lot?
Not at all. No, not usually, but just if I've been stuck in traffic like that for a long time, yeah, it's not nice because like when you're training hard and like so I'm not 25 anymore, so it's yeah, you're training hard. You don't recover as quickly. You don't take too well to being stuck behind a chair a lot, you know.
Yeah.
And I found that over the course of the likes of the lockdown and stuff, working from home and working online rather than working in person. You're kind of just stuck at the kitchen table for hours on end, hunched over the laptop. So it's a big difference. I don't know how people do that kind of 8 hours a day for 40, 50 years. It's not for me, you know.
Yeah. Would you prefer like to coach one on one then as opposed to like online, or do you have a preference?
I think so. Yeah, like I do prefer that. Like I'm back training people now because like that's what my profession is. I'm strength and conditioning coach, so I'm back training people actually face to face. And yeah, I much prefer it. Like I've been all through the lockdown and stuff. I was doing online classes and stuff, so that was cool. It was kind of novel. Like it was good in that I didn't have to get up at like stupid o'clock in the morning to go down and open the gym. But yeah, it's much nicer to be actually around people because right now they're all buzzing to be just sociable again and be surrounded by people and see people for the first time in 3 months. I suppose a lot of people have been cooped up in their houses for a long time now at this point, so they're just glad to be spending time with other people for a change, you know?
Yeah. But like that as a coach, like you need that, don't you? You need that kind of that bounce off of people.
Yeah, I like the atmosphere like as well. Like and you get it when you're around people and like the thing you have to remember when you're coaching people is it's the hour they're coming in to see you is usually the highlight of their day for a lot of people. So sometimes when you're coaching and you're doing sessions back to back to back to back, you can be a bit tired or you can be a bit worn out or whatever. But you have to kind of remember that people are going there for a fucking distraction from whatever's going on in their lives. So it's important that it's good that you do need to sort of welcome them into the place and do your best not to be in a foul humor and to put your own troubles at the back of your mind and just be happy about it. And yeah, I am really enjoying the positivity. I have to say, at the last, what are we back now? Nearly 2 weeks. We started back at the first of the month, and yeah, I'm loving it. Like, 'cause people are just delighted. A lot of them, like, they're just stuck in the houses, like the rest of us. We're all stuck in the house with our family non-stop, and you can't go see your brother, your sister, your mother there for a little while we were actually in lockdown. And a lot of them are just like stuck at home with a bunch of kids who are driving them up the wall. So just the elation I'm seeing in people's faces when they're getting their first one or two sessions back under their belt now, actually surrounded by their friends, and the just relief of getting out of the house for a little while. With a lot of people working from home too, so now they don't even have the social aspect that you would get of going to work. So it's definitely gonna take a little bit of getting used to for a lot of folks.
Yeah. Like it was a big change in routine, like wasn't it? Like you said, going to work, going to the gym, like that's people's routine, and all of a sudden that was interrupted.
Yeah, huge. And even like the way we're back now as well, there's a lot of things that are different, and it's sort of uncharted territory as well. So anyone who's like, obviously this is a martial arts podcast, so a lot of people listening probably run gyms, and they're probably dealing with a lot of the same trouble. Like mine isn't a martial arts gym now, but it's you have the same issues. You're sort of trying to figure out on the fly what to do, how to restructure this. How do I get people? How many people can I have booking in per session? What do I do when people want to book in, but then they can't book in? How do I restructure my payment scheme? All these kind of, there's a million things that you wouldn't think of that have to be figured out. And we're sort of all just kind of figuring it out as we go along. So it is quite challenging. But the big thing about it is people are eager to get back being sociable and spending time with other people. They're eager to get back training and like during lockdown, it was great to see a lot of people actually stepping up at their exercise levels or physical activity levels. A lot of people were taking up running, taking up cycling, taking up different stuff just because they had extra time now.
Yeah.
and that was really good. That was a really positive thing. And now that we're actually able to get back to martial arts, it's like, oh Jesus, yeah, it's fantastic. It's an amazing feeling. So we're just very appreciative of it right now. I'm sure a lot of people are.
That was it. Like, you didn't realize how much you love it until it was just snatched away from you. And it was the blink of an eye, really, wasn't it? Like,
Big time, yeah. You guys are back training as well, yeah?
yeah, we went back on I think it was 29th, the first day, pretty much the first day we were allowed back. I think it was the 29th, the first day we were allowed back, we were back. It was a quick turnaround because like that, I think we got a week's notice to kind of realize we could open. So, yeah, we got to just clean down everything, just get ready to go. So we're back about, like I said, about 3 weeks. So it's been good. Like the response has been good.
It was kind of short notice, wasn't it? Because they sort of just changed. They kind of gave us a date down in the middle of August, then they brought it back a little bit, and then they brought it back again. So it was like, okay, quick, make some plans and get this show on the road. So a lot of gyms were probably caught on the hop and probably weren't really ready for that. But look, we're all glad to be open again, I suppose.
Yeah, I like that. I've been happy even with the response we've got back. Like pretty much, we're not quite back to full attendance, but we're pretty close. So that's been good as well.
Yeah, same with us. Like the small space I have, due to the whole 2 meter social distancing guideline thing, we basically have a limit on the amount of people now that we can have in per session, and it's much less than it used to be. It used to be like 10. We used to have 10 to 12 in for group sessions, and the room would be pretty full. But I would have it well organised so that people weren't all on top of each other. But now we're capped at 6. So it's more difficult for people to get their spots, but a lot of them are just basically doing 1 or 2 less sessions per week, and people are sort of making it work. And I'm still doing some online sessions and stuff. So there's a few people that are working from home, and you'll always have a few people that are maybe just a little bit wary about going back training just yet. They might wait a little bit longer. So I have a few of those clients that are they're taking part in home workouts and stuff. Some of them are doing one right now. Actually, I pre-recorded a yoga session for them, so they're slogging away on that right now as we speak. We'd usually be doing a live one roughly around this time on a Tuesday night. So yeah, it's good. Everyone's sort of figuring their way back into it,
Yeah, definitely. But like, so then, like, what's your kind of background in martial arts? Like, when did you get into jiu-jitsu and stuff? Like, what's your own background there?
Okay, I'm quite a while at it now. Like, I'm doing jiu-jitsu. What am I now? God, it's probably 9.5, nearly 10 years possibly, or thereabouts, or about the whole martial arts thing anyway. So I was about maybe 31, 32 when I started. So I wasn't too young and fresh-faced when I was getting going, like. But it was initially kickboxing I took up. Because I'm from Meath originally, and there was a club opened up close to us, and they were doing kickboxing and some jiu-jitsu and some MMA. So I was like, I was had played GA for a good few years, and I'd sort of just kind of fallen out of love with that. And I'd stopped maybe a year or so, and I was looking for just something new to kind of fill me time. And I've liked MMA, I've always been into the fights and stuff. I was a big boxing fan all throughout growing up, and then I really got into MMA and stuff. So I was like, let's go give this a go. And I ended up it was predominantly boxing I was doing when I first started. So I kind of had a couple of fights at that, and I kind of sprinkled in 1 or 2 jiu-jitsu classes there. But the club there was affiliated to Team Ryano, which is one of the bigger sort of MMA jiu-jitsu gyms in the country. And at the time, they were based in Baldoyle in Dublin. So I kind of got into the habit of maybe once every week or 2 popping up to them for a session. And after a little while, I was like, you know what, Becca, I'm just going to start going to these guys full time, because it was a different level. Like, it was a big inner club where I was training. There was a lot of white belts, and it was basic enough stuff. You had, I think, 1 jiu-jitsu class a week. And I sort of got into that. I started wanting to kind of dive into the jiu-jitsu thing a bit more. So I went to Team Ryano and got stuck in up there, and been there ever since. The gym now has moved to Finglas a good few years ago. But I'm part of the furniture up there now, like what is it now? Yeah, it must be 9.5 years, something like that. But I'm all the way up at brown belt level now, which, like, at the time when I started, there was only 2 brown belts in the country. Or there was 2 black belts in the country, sorry. My coach, Andy Ryan, was a black belt. He had just got his. and John Kavanagh, who of course most people will know as McGregor's head coach in SBG.
Yeah.
So quite a long time ago now, and like you kind of you're going up, and you're one of the smaller fish in the pond, and you just keep going and you just keep turning up, and before you know it, you're turning around and people are asking you for advice, and you know you've been there for a while longer, and you're one of the higher grades in the place. So you know how it is. It's like it happens in a flash. You know, just you're not really focusing on what you're doing. You're just having too much fun, enjoying the ride, and yeah, delved into like MMA along the way a little bit as well, but it's been mostly jiu-jitsu now, and I'm to go punch in the face anyway. So it's a great journey, you know. Like I've competed flat out a lot of the way through. Anytime I've been fit and capable, I've competed all the way through. Whereas a lot of guys, when they sort of get to my age, they kind of have a reason not to compete, or they sort of let themselves go a little bit and maybe just train as hobbyists, which, you know, I kind of do at the moment, but I still throw myself into competition when I get the chance, you know. So it's, yeah, been a wild ride, but not ready to stop just yet. We'll keep it going for as long as the bus keeps wheeling. We'll come off, you know, keep trucking along.
Yeah. I think that's one of the benefits. Like, obviously, nearly any martial arts you can take up at any age, but I think maybe where jiu-jitsu is, like, I suppose my background in taekwondo, can be hard to, when you're a little bit older, to come in and like be flexible and start kicking head high and stuff. You kind of really have to really work and build it up, but there's not much restriction that way in terms of jiu-jitsu. Like,
yeah, the great thing I love about jiu-jitsu is that when you compete, there's avenues for you to compete no matter what age you are. So like the domestic competitions now, it's a little harder, because if I'll be 42 now in September. I have to keep guessing or trying to remember what age I am. But like if I go to compete now internationally, I would be in Master 3. So the way it works is you've got adult divisions. And then once you go 30 to 35, you can register then to compete at Master 1. So it's guys who are just that little bit past their peak. Maybe they've retired from the top level or whatever. Then 35 to 40, you'll be in Master 2. And now I'm into Master 3, so I'm definitely getting old, you know. But like if you're going to compete at the big international ones like the Europeans, the Worlds, the Pan Ams, you go and register for one of those tournaments. There's a shitload of guys in your division. Whereas domestically here, you might be lucky to get one, maybe two people in your division. Like I did a couple of big domestic ones this year, and I had to drop down one age category, which I absolutely don't mind, because you're only a couple of years age difference. It's nothing, you know. Whereas some of the competitions I did, just to get matches under the belt, I dropped down into the adult division. Like I fought someone who was 20 years younger than me not that long ago. Do you know what I mean? And when you're 4 or 5 minutes into those matches, you kind of start to feel the pace. You know, those guys are a little bit quicker all the time, and they're a little bit sharper in the transitions and scrambles. So I still do it. I still throw myself in there just to get the matches. But the great thing is, like, you go to the Europeans, there's guys at Master 6. They're hunching out onto the mat. Their knuckles are broken up, shoulders are bent over, and they're walking with a limp. But then they get out there and they slap hands and they go at it. You know, there's a lot of guys there who've maybe done judo all their lives or done wrestling all their lives, and then they've transitioned to jiu-jitsu. And then they've kind of gone up through the grades there, and now they're competing at Master 5 or Master 6. You know, absolute war horses, like guys they'd crush you. You know, so it's cool to see. It's really cool to see, especially at those big international ones. It's amazing. Like we've gone over there a few times, and at the Europeans, there's been guys in our bracket. There's a guy in our bracket that won. He competed at the 2004 Olympics, I think, in Greco-Roman wrestling. He won. I don't know, deaf guys, do they compete in the Paralympics, or is there a special deaf Olympics? It's one or the other, but he won it multiple times in Greco-Roman wrestling. And then he's in we were purple belts, he's in our division in Jiu-Jitsu, and we're like, okay, my mate got drawn against him. Thankfully it was him, not me. But you get guys like that, and then guys who've maybe been a judo black belt for 10 years, and then they've got to purple belt or brown belt level in Jiu-Jitsu as well. So it's not like you're going in there against some alpha and having an easy match. Like, you're going in there against someone who's battle hardened, someone who fought in the UFC 15 years ago. Or, you know, there's guys that have come from all sorts of different sports and different backgrounds and stuff. There's no easy matches at those levels, you know. So it's interesting. You do have that, like, if your body will hold up, like I'd happily be still competing like when I'm in my 50s and 60s, if providing I can still move around a little bit, you know, and that's the plan.
Yeah. like it's definitely something that we do like in taekwondo, like we have, like you said, it's kind of the same in Ireland. It's the like the veterans divisions, as I kind of call it. They're like not that big, but you can go abroad to get a little bit bigger. But a lot of the guys, when they retire from high level competition, they tend to kind of drop back into coaching and teaching. And like if they go to these big tournaments, because it's not split into like juniors and seniors, so they're kind of there focusing on the juniors that they've taken. But like it would be nice, I think, maybe see some of those like who are top level competitors, but then if they still have an avenue to compete in high level, I think it'd be good. I think it's something that maybe could be done a little bit better, I suppose, in taekwondo, like, because like that, why not stay going?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, funny enough, now, right enough, when the pandemic kicked off here, there was a few competitions obviously got cancelled left, right, and centre. But one that was just about to happen was the first ever Irish Masters Open. So they had set it up. I think it was due to take place in March, maybe in Limerick, I think, from what I remember. And they had guys register from the UK and flying in from places. It was just you had to be over 30, and they had all the Master 1, Master 2, Master 3. There was no adult divisions, just Master divisions. And it would have been great, because in England they have one. They have the UK Masters, which started, I think, 3 years ago. And it's on every September. And I went over a couple of times. And it's a phenomenal day out because we all sort of know each other. Like when we compete, when we go to the Europeans, you'll know the 2 or 3 English guys in the division because you'll have met them doing the London Open or when you go to the Paris Open. You get to know the guys on the circuit. You become friends. You keep in touch over Facebook. And then when you go to the UK Masters, it's great out fun. Everyone just knows each other because you've got all the guys who were doing it a few years and the guys who all run gyms, all the black belts and brown belts, they all register, and it's a real cool social occasion. You fly over the night before, you hire a car, you drive down to the venue, and you just hang out all day watching good matches. Everyone has a laugh. I got has a coffee after their match and a chat, watches a few more matches, and then goes home. It's an interesting day out, So I'm hopeful that they can get that back up and running once kind of tournaments and stuff, if and when they do get back up and going, because that'd be real cool. Nice to have for us our lads to have a day out as well,
Yeah, like you said. Well, what else would you be doing? Like, yeah, a couple of days doing what you love, watching what you love. Like there's worse things.
Yeah. Well, I was just talking about that with a friend there the other day. He doesn't really compete a whole lot, and we were kind of saying to him, look, the next time we go to the Europeans, you just come with us because when you go to the Europeans, it's just great fun. You're over there for a couple of days and you train really hard. Like the improvements you make in your game while getting ready for a big international tournament are great because it forces you to get the head down and pinpoint some stuff that you need to make improvements on. Train hard, put in the hard sparring, get yourself in great shape. And usually for us now, the Europeans are in January. So what it does for us is it makes us kind of look after ourselves throughout December. So you don't come out of Christmas fat and out of shape, which is great. And like I'll pick the 2 or 3 social occasions that I have to go to throughout Christmas. I'll sort of pinpoint those in the diary, and I'll just go, right, I'll have those, but that's it. And then like the Europeans is usually like the third week in January. So you have time then to sort of get back. But we're basically training throughout Christmas. You'll get up out of bed on Stephen's Day and the next day and the next day, and you'll go and you'll spar and get that done before you do everything else for the day. And you start the new year in a sort of a positive frame of mind rather than being hungover and depressed like most people, And we were kind of saying to our mate the other day, you should come with us because when you go to the tournament, it's a couple of days away and you get a little bit of sun in January, so it's something to look forward to rather than the doom and gloom at the start of the year. And you're just you're eating in some nice little restaurants, and then you're just watching some high-level jiu-jitsu for a few days. Really, really high level. All the big superstars are there to compete at the adult black belt divisions, and the atmosphere is fantastic. Just a great social occasion as well, And I think that's one of the big things that I'm kind of missing now that all this shit is going on around us. The social aspect of going to tournaments is great. Like you just bump into people there all the time that you don't see that often, but you always get on well with, and you'll have a good chat, and you can catch up and have a coffee with them and that kind of thing. So yeah, we're missing a bit of that at the moment. There's no sign of any big social gatherings. So tournaments will probably be out of the question for the rest of the year, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I'd imagine like that. Yeah, we were meant to go to the European Championships back in April. And it was when it first got cancelled, I was kind of feeling like, yeah, look, whatever, it is what it is. Like, but then it got to that we'd already been in lockdown for maybe 4 or 5 weeks, and I got to the week we're supposed to be there, and it just kind of hit. It was like, I should be. It was meant to be on Slovakia, so I should be in Slovakia for the week competing, and just, like watching high level matches, just, and like you said, meeting people, like meeting kind of friends from the other countries and all this sort of stuff. Like you just miss it, like.
Big time, yeah. Like, I'm missing it now. Like, I was kind of like you. I was like, sure, look, it's grand and whatever. But I'm definitely sort of just getting that itch and that urge to compete now. Like, I was watching. There's been some grappling events on there the weekend just gone. I was watching on Fight Pass. I was watching Polaris. They had a sub-only show on, and the week before, Grapple Fest guys had one on in the UK. Now there's no spectators, but it's just some high-level matches, submission-only matches. And I was watching them, and I was like, "Fuck, I'm kind of missing that little, that the butterflies and the adrenaline, and just preparing for a competition and stuff." So, and there's not really one on the horizon now either. So usually I like to kind of know when my next one is. So it gives me a little bit of focus in my training. So like I've spent the whole lockdown working hard and training hard and just focusing on some other stuff, it's been great. I've put the time to good use. But yeah, I do just miss the excitement of just having something coming up. You're 4 or 5 weeks away from this big tournament, and then all of a sudden it's only 2 weeks away, and the sparring's hard, and you're pushing yourself to spar with the better guys all the time and get out of bad positions rather than just sandbagging in them. And all those little things, I'm definitely missing them. And I think that's like a personality trait that most competitive athletes probably have, is just, you kind of sort of have to feed that little demon in there that just wants all those things, So missing that big time.
Yeah, that's where as I've been competing, as like the time I've been competing is pushing on. Like, even though I'm not that old at all by any means, but that's what I love more and most now, is that like you said, the warm up, the putting the gear on, the gear check, that type of stuff, just the buzz, like the anticipation to stepping onto the floor. Like, that's where I get most of it. You need that every so often.
That process is just, I love that. I love competition day. I love just the challenge of trying to keep your cool and trying to focus and prepare yourself, like, just mentally as well as anything else. The physical stuff is grand. Like, I mean, I do it for a living, so I know how to put a plan in place to get myself in shape, but I know how to train so that my body feels good on competition day and whatnot, and I can perform. But the big challenge is the mental side, and like, are you going out there too relaxed, or are you going out there too amped up? You've got to find that right balance, and that whole process of warming up properly without burning out, not getting too anxious, dealing with all of the nerves and the butterflies. And I love all of that, and I get off on that, like, big time. That's one of my favorite things in the sport. So yeah, I'm missing it big time. But with a bit of luck now, we get something soon, but might not be for the rest of this year. It sucks, and like being out of competition for a while sucks. I think it was the year before last. I had a good time away from competition. When I first got my brown belt 2 years, I think, or just more than 2 years. I competed a couple of times, but then the rest of that year, I tore my rotator cuff. So the rest of that year, I didn't know it was torn, but I knew there was a problem with it. So I was kind of stopping and starting with training, and I was in pain, and I couldn't really compete or whatnot. And eventually I found wrong, and then I was able to sort of go fixing it then. So I competed, and it was great. Like, you miss it when you can't do it, So all this time that's going by right now is time that we could be fitting in some competitions usually. So it's difficult, but I'm sure I'm not the only one feeling like that.
Yeah. Like what you said with the Europeans and Worlds, like, how does that work? Like, who can register? Who can enter? Like, is it open? Is there a selection per country? Like, how many? Is there a certain limit per country who can go? What's the
well, they're open registration. The IBJJF run the big ones, like the World Championships, the Nogi Worlds, the Europeans, and all that. At black belt adult, you need to accrue a certain amount of points to qualify. So if the Europeans is in January 2020, you need to spend 2019. You'd have to enter X amount of their competitions. I don't know how you accrue points. Maybe you have to medal once or twice. I don't know, or just register and perform. Who knows? But for all the other divisions, you just it's open entry. You book online, you book your register, and you can kind of see the divisions when you go on their website. You can see who's in it. So if there's no one in your bracket, maybe you'll gamble first. You'll take the plunge, you'll register, and people might see your name then and then sign up. Especially like when you're in the older guy divisions like ours, it's like sometimes you like, depending on the size of the tournament, if it's like the Madrid Open or the Paris Open or something like that, you might only have one or two people in that bracket, whereas in the adult brackets you'll have loads. But then, like for the Europeans, you're guaranteed a nice chunky bracket. Like Master 3 brown belt that I'd be in, I think last year probably had like 20 guys or something like that, which is unbelievable for that. Like the adult blue belt divisions would have well over 100 in each weight class. So they're quite stacked, And then the divisions are straight knockout, so you just get drawn against whoever. You win that fight, you go back to the bullpen, you sit down, you chill out until your name is called again. And the bigger the division, the longer recovery you'd have between fights, because they have to get through quite a few of the bracket before they come back around to you, And it's good. It's just a great test. It's a great test of your of what you've been doing all year, One of the things I like about jiu-jitsu is it's a good testing ground, and there's no real way, there's no hiding place. Like you're in a martial art where you compete, you spar, so you know the crack. You can't bluff your way. Like you're not just doing katas, you're learning something, and then you're seeing if it's going to actually work against an opponent who doesn't want you to do it to them. So that's what I love about it. Any martial art, like sorry, I'm getting feedback there. Any sparring martial art where you have to kind of really test your mettle. That's really what I like, So it's a great experience, competing and just dealing with that whole adrenaline, that buzz. It's fantastic,
Yeah, I like that you would compete you'd finish the bracket on the one day.
Yeah. So the Europeans, for example, now runs over 6 days because it's so big. You might have, I think, do they have 4,000 or 5,000 competitors in total, like over all of the divisions? It's one of the biggest competitions. So like Monday, Tuesday might be all of the white belt divisions getting run off, and then your division is always just on that one day. So like at brown belt level and purple belt level, the last couple of years, masters, we were always on the Friday, which was great. So you could go over like on Thursday morning, chill out for the day, get an early night, get up and compete the next day, and then fly home on Sunday. Whereas back when we were blue belts and stuff, we used to have to go over much earlier in the week, and then if you wanted to stay to watch them, you'd have to go there for the whole week, And by the end of the week, you'd be sick of looking at jiu-jitsu. Like you'd be there for 5 or 6 days, you'd be like, oh, just get me home and wreck now at this stage. But you're in and out. Like, so your division would run off it's inside of an hour or two. So you'll fight, and then you'll be back on again maybe 15, 20 minutes later, and back on again after that, So it's tough, multiple matches back to back is it's grueling, You got to sort of you got to play the game, and you can't go kind of. Well, you got to just get yourself in shape is the main thing, because you can't be dead after one match and then expect to do well tournament wise. You got to be able to handle a couple of different opponents and different styles and stuff. So it's fantastic like that, It's good to have tough challenges.
Yeah. But that, like our Europeans and Worlds, and that would be the same. You have your whole tournament. Maybe the final might be pushed back into kind of like a finals night or something, but pretty much it's probably going to be all run on the same day. But I know other martial arts then have maybe one fight a day until it's finished. They're kind of two different types of fitness then as well, like, aren't they? Like the ability to be able to go back to back to back on the same day, but then there's also maybe a different type of fitness to be able to compete consecutive days once the adrenaline is worn off and you're starting to feel the aches, and then the next day you have to get yourself warm and going again. Whereas the same day you don't have to deal with the but you have to be fit as well to do it.
Yeah, the IMAF, like the amateur MMA, worlds and Europeans and all that stuff, what they do is they do like your division is run day after day after day, and then starts on the Monday, and then on the Sunday the final of the division is on. So you'll be fighting on Monday, you'll have to weigh in that morning, and then you'll fight that afternoon, and then you have to weigh in the next morning for the next round if you won, and you'll fight that afternoon, and it's knockout. So if you lose, you're out, and you're done. But if you make it to the final, you might have 4 or 5 consecutive days where you have a full MMA fight, 3-minute rounds, like in the cage, and I can only imagine how that feels. Like I'd say that's fairly brutal, because MMA is just so tough on the body, Jiu-jitsu, not so bad. I find the big thing with jiu-jitsu when you're going through multiple matches is just getting yourself up mentally the second time and then the third time and then the fourth time. It can be grueling. Like, I've had matches, like there's some tournaments here, Grappling Industries have started putting tournaments on here over the last 2 years. And they're brilliant. They put on 3 competitions last year and the year before. And when you register, what they do is they put you in a little group with like 4 guys. So if there's 4 other people in your division, you're going to fight all 4 of them. And then whoever has the most wins gets the gold. So you'll get extra points if you submit someone. It's like a league table. Or I think they put the top 2 guys against each other then in a final. And you can register to compete in the gi, no gi. And when you're my age, you can register at masters no gi, adult no gi. So you can actually pick 3 or 4 different divisions. You just pay the extra 10 or 15 quid for each division. So I did one there in I think it was the start of December. And what I did was I did the open weight in the gi and no gi, and then I did my weight class in the gi and no gi. And I had 8 matches over the course of the day. And I'm telling you, I was broken the next day. Like the first 4 matches I had were within the first hour that morning because the divisions were running consecutively. I was running from mat to mat. They were calling me name when I finished one match. So I had 4 matches under the belt by 10 a.m. I was dead. And they were open weight as well. So the guys were like 10, 15 kilos heavier than me. I spent the afternoon just like, oh shit, I'm wrecked. And then I'd come back for 2 matches in the afternoon and then 2 after that. So yeah, it's good to be able to do that, but you need to be well prepared. You need to be ready, you need to be in good nick. Tough.
Yeah. It sounds like great crack though. Like, what a day, a great day.
Yeah. And the good thing with those tournaments is when you're a brown belt or a black belt, I think Grappling Industries, yeah, if you're a brown belt or a black belt, you compete for free. So you register, and because they've done that, so that a lot of coaches will sort of push their students then to pay and register. So like they'll fill up the brown belt and black belt divisions, but then all the purples and blues and whites will register as well, and they sort of make their money off that. So it's really good, yeah. So you get matches, and you can sign up and you just don't have to pay a penny. So that's a nice novel sort of way of doing it, and fair play to them, because the big ones, the IBJJF, like if you're registering to compete with Europeans, the registration fee alone it's about €100, and then you also need to be registered with the IBJJF for the year, the membership, and that's about $40 or something like that. So it's a bit of a money racket. So it's nice that once you reach sort of brown belt level, that people are giving you shit back for free. Like it's quite cool. I won't turn that down.
There's some benefits to giving you to putting in those years, like.
Yeah, you want to get something back rather than just a few broken bones and bruises and a few concussions, So it's nice. It's nice to get the benefits.
Yeah. So how long do you think you'll be till you get to black?
Oh, fuck knows. I wouldn't be like when you do jiu-jitsu, you're kind of the first couple of belts. Like everyone's really eager to get their blue belt, and it can take you like you could get it like in a year, or it might take you 3 years. You'd be depending on how much. So it's different in every case, but everyone's mad eager to get that blue belt, And the joke within jiu-jitsu is that everyone quits once they're a blue belt. Like so many people quit when, like, obviously 90% of people quit when they're a white belt, like, because you go down to jiu-jitsu and you just get manhandled, like, you're going for a long time before anything works. Like, you're just getting ragdolled all over the place. Like, there's no you're not beating up anyone within the first couple of months. Do you know what I mean? Until a new white belt comes in, and then a few things, and you put it on him, and then another new white belt comes in, and then you're putting it on him as well. And then after a while, you get a blue belt and that. So you're always eager to get that belt. And then I remember getting me purple belt. I hit a really hot streak in competition, and I got me purple belt. And I was like, oh, this is great. You're loving the new belt. But then you go to compete and you realize what you're coming up against. The level of those guys technically is that's when things start getting serious. Once you reach purple belt, there's no easy fights anymore. I remember being a blue belt, and like I was middling there for a while. You'll win some matches, you'll lose some matches, and the standard would vary. So some guys would be great and they'd put you away in a flash, and then other guys would be shit and you beat lumps out of them. And there was a wide variety of standard there. But once you hit purple belt, it's like there's not that many poor purple belts out there. Everyone can, if you've made it that far, you can usually handle yourself. So I remember that jump up, and then Like I was in absolutely no rush from there on. I wasn't really too pushed about the belts. You lose that little kind of bug that makes you want to chase the belts. You forget, you just go, right, don't worry about that. Just enjoy the whole training process now, because if you just do it for long enough, they'll come. So I don't mind if it's another little while yet. You know what I mean? Like I've put in a good few years, but look, who knows? There's guys that have put in a lot more than me and probably still aren't black belts. So yeah, don't really mind. If I got it like in 6 months or a year, whatever, I'd be happy to just jump in and compete at black belt again. Be no problem at all. But yeah, don't mind. I'm not too pushed either way.
Yeah, would there be much of a jump up from the brown belt to black belt? I would imagine so.
I'd say so. Like, as in, a lot of the guys that are at the black belt level in the weight class I'd be in, I probably fought a lot of them as brown belts and as purple belts. Like, I know a lot of guys who are there, and I've beaten some guys that are black belts now. So yeah, I think once you sort of hit brown belt level, everyone's fairly good anyway. So brown belts and black belts are great, but then there's a few outliers, guys that have been doing it for so long, and they're streets ahead of everyone else. Like, there's levels. There's I know black belts that like can fold me up and submit me 5 times in 5 minutes, and then there's black belts that'll do the same thing to them, and then there's other black belts that'll do the same thing to them, and that just keeps going. It's scary. Like, you don't realize, you think you're getting good, but then like someone just butchers you, and effortlessly as well. A lot of guys they'll do it without even breaking a sweat, and you can then do that to someone else. It's very it's humbling, all right, but it's jiu-jitsu is just so technical, and like the way that like you're always learning new shit and discovering new shit, or figuring out, oh wow, I didn't realize I could do this from here, and now this opens up 8 different things that I can do from that position. And it's like Pandora's box. Every time you do something or figure out something new, then that opens up another different avenue to your game. So there's guys out there that have been doing it their whole lives, and they could just they could tie you up like they're tying their shoelaces. They can do it with their eyes closed and without even thinking. It's crazy. So yeah, at the highest level, like there's some absolute scary guys out there. But look, jiu-jitsu it's a competitive martial art, so you kind of have to. I've always been like, anytime I got a new belt, I've always been eager to go and compete at it. And like a lot of guys get their new belt and they shy away from competition. I'll wait a while. Maybe I'll wait 6 months. Maybe I'll wait a year before I dip that water. But I think I've always competed like within a few weeks of getting me new belt. I remember when I got my purple belt, I competed a week later. I jumped up 2 weight classes and I moved down to compete in the adult division just to get a couple of matches in and see what the level of those guys was like. And it was really, really good. And you sort of have to just throw yourself in there, just get the first one out of the way, and then the next one, and then the next one. And all of a sudden, you start sort of feeling comfortable in that deep end of the pool, So it'll be the same when black belt comes around. I think I'd be eager to get going and see, can I get a match up against some really, really, really high level black belt who's well known, and then just perform perform well, test myself against them. You can't get hung up on, oh shit, I might lose, because it's not like MMA or any striking martial art. Like, it's not going to get me head kicked in and get a massive concussion, So like you get in trouble. All you do is you do that, you tap, and there's your ejector seat cord, so you're good. So it's a good test, I don't think there's anything to be worried about. Just I'm looking forward to it whenever it does happen.
Yeah. Well, we see that a lot in Taekwondo. People even, they get their grandmother competing as colour belts, but they get the black belt, and sometimes they'll kick the can down the road. Right, I won't compete the first competition. I won't compete this time. I'll go to the next one. But then there's the next one. There's always the next one, and then before you know it, they stop competing. Whereas the people who stick around and are the ones who go just straight. Sure, look, I don't care. Like you said, I don't care how it goes. I'll just jump in and just get stuck in when you can, as soon as you can.
Yeah, like I'm very lucky in that where I train, like there's a lot of gyms. If you walk into a lot of gyms wearing a brown belt or a black belt, they might have a black belt coach, and then that'd be it. And the majority of people in the gym might be blue belts, 1 or 2 higher belts. That's the vast majority of gyms. Where I train, I think we have the most black belts per single gym in the country. I think we've got at least 15 now in the whole gym. And as I was saying earlier, when I started, there was only 2 in the whole country. Yeah. So there's nights when you'll go down to the gym and there might be 5 black belts on the mat, 5 or 6 brown belts, 5 or 6 purple belts, and then there might be 1 or 2 white and blue belts. And you just feel sorry for those poor motherfuckers because they're getting passed around the gym all night, you know. So I find that, like, if you're training for a competition, if I go into the gym, I'm very lucky in that there's a lot of those higher belts are similar weight class to me. They're within maybe 8 or 10 kilos of my weight. So if I'm training for a competition, I can go in there and I go, right, we're doing 8 rounds of sparring tonight, and I can just make a mental note of who's there, who's the black belts and the brown belts that are like 75 kilos. Right, I'm going to get a round in with him, and I'll get a round in with him, and I'll get a round in with him. So if you're doing that repeatedly and you're making yourself do that, you know, a lot of people can sort of do it the other way. They can go, I'll avoid him and I'll avoid him, and they'll pick the lighter rounds, the easier rounds. But I just don't have that trait really in me personality, especially if I'm competing. And I know there's a competition coming up, and I know I'm going to have to fucking do it in front of people. I might as well do it in the gym and get it done. So I force myself to go with those really good guys that are going to give me a hard time. So then when you go to compete, that's that. But like, this guy is, there's three guys that I've been doing with for the last few weeks, and it's great, you know. Like, a couple of me mates, like I'm barely back training jiu-jitsu at the moment, but I'm training with a couple of mates, because we're all fairly flat out busy, so we're sort of meeting up and training little sneaky private sessions, and the guys are just animals, you know. One of them's a black belt, the other guy's a brown belt, and we're all training since day one together. And it's be the hardest rounds you'd get anywhere anyway. So it's like, once you're doing that all the time, you're being honest and putting the hard work in with those guys. There's nothing really to be too scared of once you go into competition, you know. You just got to prepare properly.
Yeah, once you have belief, I suppose, in your preparation and belief in the people you're training with, then the competition becomes easier.
Yeah, that's, a lot of people do that. Like I said, they sort of, they call themselves, maybe in the gym, they sort of sandbag, they pick the easier rounds, and then they'll just constantly do that. And then maybe, you know, they'll get to a good position during the roll, and you can sort of find positions where you can rest a little bit. And, you know, I've got this guy tied up in my half guard now, he's locked up, he can't pass it, but I'm going to wait it out here a little bit. Maybe I'll sweep them with 10 seconds to go, rather than, you know, forcing themselves, really push the pace on the round. And if you're competing, I think you need to do things like that. You need to go on the front foot. You need to put yourself in bad positions and then force yourself to get out of them. There's a lot of subtle things that you can do yourself to really sort of bring your game on and get ready for competition. I think a lot of people sort of, they lie to themselves, and they skip that, you know. Oh, I went to the gym and I did 10 rounds. Yeah, but what were the 10 rounds like? Were you keeping score? Like, if I'm in there and I'm rolling, I'd be going, right, this guy has me swept. If this was a match, I'd be 2 points down. There's 2 minutes left. I have to get out from this bottom position now. That clock is running out, you know. I'll give myself little challenges like that, particularly when I'm training for a competition. That's when I'll really kind of enforce those sort of things on myself. And yeah, a lot of guys just don't do that. They sort of coast through their rounds, just clock up the minutes, and not really make them as valuable as they could be, you know. And I think that's a big problem for a lot of people, because that'll make you nervous when you go to compete. You'll be nervous and anxious then, because deep down you'll know you didn't work as hard as you could have. I think that's why a lot of people suffer with anxiety and nerves before competition. Whereas if you've done the slog properly, honestly, you can tell yourself when the nerves start and the butterflies start, it's okay. It's be cool, be calm. You've done this, you do this all the time. It's important to do that, you know, especially if you compete.
Yeah. Do you have a preference, gi versus no gi?
I like watching no gi because it's more exciting to look at. The gi stuff can be very, unless you really understand the intricacies of it, it can be a bit like dull to watch. But playing it, I love training in the gi, because I'm a bit older now and I don't train as much. Like when I was younger, I used to sort of train. I'd be on the mat 6 times a week, so you get to do a bit of both. And I was doing a bit of MMA and stuff, and you get to play with all of them. Now, me training time is limited. If I'm on, like at the moment, I'm on the mats twice a week. I would have that usually between 3 and 4 would be the most my body could really handle before I start breaking down. So you sort of have to pick one or the other if you're going to compete. So it's nearly all gi that I train. It's a very different game because you're using the jacket and the sleeves and the pants, and there's so many different guards that you can use and submissions that you can use in the gi that are just not applicable whatsoever in no gi. You know, a lot of it does cross over, but there's a huge amount that doesn't. And yeah, so you sort of have to, you pick one horse and you ride that horse if you don't have time to ride the two of them. But I find that when I compete, like that competition I was saying earlier, where it was 8 matches, the vast majority were no gi. It didn't go well because I wasn't training any no gi, so I was all over the place. I was like a fish out of water, you know. So yeah, it's yeah, I do prefer training in the gi, I have to say. But you get this shit, you get the knuckles are all smashed up on your fingers, and they look like they're after being through a mincer. So yeah, you pay the price, you know.
Yeah. I can't remember. Was it a Joe Rogan episode? I can't remember. I was watching something recently, and they showed the same, like the knuckles, and they were in pieces. Yeah.
Yeah, and I found just because usually you don't feel it, because if you're doing it week in, week out for years, they're just calloused and you don't feel a thing. But there, whatever it was, 3-4 weeks ago, when we think they were like corned beef. The skin just has to, like, even now they're still a little bit tender to touch. The skin just has to get used to that shit again, you know. Because like, especially the game I would play, I tie people's sleeves up, I tie people's pants up, and the type of grip you use, it's like it's really really rough on there, and the materials are quite brutal on the skin. So yeah, the skin just has to get used to them again, you know.
Yeah. Tends to be for myself in our sport. It tends to be the shins, clashing legs and stuff. There's a couple of weeks of not doing that. Like when you're doing it regular, you don't feel it. You just keep going. But after a couple of weeks, not you just get that ding on the shin, and you're like, oh, it takes a little bit of getting used to.
You're not conditioned then for a little while, because after the pandemic, did you train much during the pandemic?
Very little at all. Yeah, didn't do a whole lot at home, but yeah, we're getting back into it now. Thankfully, it's been much better.
Yeah, it's a lot of the jiu-jitsu people were going insane. Like I kind of put the time to good use. What I did for the first while was I just right before we locked down properly, I brought a bunch of kettlebells home, and I spent kind of maybe 5 or 6 weeks just kind of working with kettlebells, and that keeps me busy because I just can't sit still. Like if I don't train for a couple of days, like I start just, yeah, I'm not good to be around. Like it's not good for my head. So I was slogging away on kettlebells and stuff. And I've also been doing a yoga teacher training course online over the whole pandemic. So that's given me a bit of time to work on that. And then once we sort of realized that, okay, this lockdown's going to go on for a while, I just kind of gutted out some of the stuff from my gym. I brought home a squat rack, bars, plates, the whole lot, and just set everything up in my backyard, because I have a nice enclosed backyard. So I've kind of put that to good use over the last while. So it's just full on strength and conditioning, a bit of running, and that sort of kept me sane, you know. But I tried to do, there's body weight jiu-jitsu workouts you can do, there's like solo drills, and some guys were running online classes, doing them and stuff, and I did a couple, but yeah, just the novelty wore off pretty fast, because yeah, it's just not the same as trying to strangle someone and then trying to strangle you. It's not the same crack, you know. You're popping around. There's a punch bag out there with a gi jacket wrapped around it, and there's a load of drills you can do with it. But yeah, once you've done them a few times, yeah, the novelty's gone, you know. So yeah, everyone's just glad to be back actually doing what they love rather than faking it, you know.
Yeah. So like, when then did you kind of start to really combine your strength and conditioning kind of background as well with the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Was that kind of always, was that something you kind of, once you started Jiu-Jitsu, that kicked off kind of straight
Yeah,
away?
well, I've been doing it for a living sort of most of my adult life. Long time now, 20, yeah, well, over 20 years I've been doing it for a living. More seriously, I've been self-employed in it for the last maybe 15 years or so. So running my own gig and stuff. So the majority of people I would train would be sort of people, like the age profile of the majority of my clients would be 30s, 40s, 50s. So I tend to deal with a lot of people who compete in various sports. Like there's quite a few of them do like triathlons and Ironmans and stuff. And then just a lot of people who want to be in good shape, maybe have a ropey back or a dodgy shoulder and stuff. So I kind of transitioned there a couple of years ago to sort of training jiu-jitsu athletes as well. I got a few guys who were run as guinea pigs for an online program that I did in the run up to the Europeans a couple of years ago, and it was great. So since then, I've been training guys remotely, like as in like online clients and stuff, like jiu-jitsu guys, predominantly guys like myself who compete at masters level and have injury issues to deal with, and kind of keeping an eye on how much volume they're doing, how they're combining it with their jiu-jitsu training. So yeah, it's really cool, you know, and it's interesting. But I do a lot. Obviously, I do it a lot myself, and that, you know, the big focus would be mobility, working around injuries, because we're all injured. We're all injured at jiu-jitsu. Like everyone has a fucked up knee or a bad back or a rotten shoulder. So yeah, I find it's great because it gives me a challenge. Then when I'm designing someone's program, I sit down and have a Zoom call with them like this, and I have to go through their list of what's broken, what can we do, and what can't we do, and then I have to put a roadmap together for them. So really good challenge, you know. And I love getting good feedback off the guys. Then guys do well in competitions, and then I get texts, you know, I fucking great, I got a gold medal at the weekend. Thanks for your program, it really helped and stuff. So it's a really cool feeling, you know. It gives me a good buzz.
Yeah. So what kind of elements would you have in a kind of BJJ specific kind of program? Would it be just generally your I suppose run of the mill kind of compound exercises, or is there anything kind of specific you have in a program for a jiu-jitsu athlete?
Yeah, well, it'll depend on the individual athlete, because what one guy can do, maybe the other guy can't do, you know. So what I do is I pick the major human movements, the primary human movements, which would be upper body push and upper body pull. So I'll figure out what exercises suit that person best to perform those. Maybe it's a bench press, maybe it's not. I'll give you an example now. I was saying earlier, I have a rotator cuff issue. I tore that rotator cuff. So I don't bench press with a straight bar, because that pronated grip puts the shoulder into internal rotation. And this is a problem people from striking sports have always had as well. You'll get that unevenness in the shoulders. You get that hunch, that internal rotation. So sometimes that bench pressing just causes more shoulder problems than it's worth. So for me, what I do is I do a lot of floor pressing, where you're lying on your back on the floor and you've limited range of motion, rather than bringing the shoulder back here, where that creates a bit of, that's called the glenohumeral glide, where your shoulder doesn't have the movement, so it adjusts itself upwards. I kind of work away with versions that do work for me. I also use a Swiss bar, which has parallel handles, so I don't have to turn my hands over. I use dumbbells and kettlebells for presses. I use push-up variations, loaded push-up variations. So there's a lot that I can do. I don't focus so much on what I can't do. There's certain types of squats that I can do and certain ones that I can't. So the lower body, you'd be doing knee dominant movements like squats, split squats, lunges, and then hip dominant movements like deadlifts, trap bar deadlifts, Romanian deadlifts, things like that. So I figure out for each individual time what would suit you best, like where are your injuries and what would we be best avoiding and what would we be best working with, and get them strong in all of those areas. Also, a little bit of work on grip. Like I don't get guys to go overkill. A lot of guys do crazy amounts of stuff for their grip, but like when you're training jiu-jitsu, you're already training the shit out of your grip. So what tends to happen is you pick up injuries in the forearm, the muscles of the forearm, the elbows, tendonitis, if you're overdoing it. Like if you're going into the weight room and doing 4 or 5 different grip exercises, it's like you're compounding the issues you're already creating when you spar. So I do a little bit of work for grip on a lot of guys. The main one would be I get them to do a lot of pulling, upper body pulling, because we compete a lot. Like the position we be in, we have shoulders, like you guys would be, well, or boxers and MMA fighters would be, shoulders are hunched. So the upper back becomes a little bit weak. The shoulders and the chest become a little bit inflexible, and that's where the shoulder injuries and back injuries tend to kind of stem from. So I do a lot of posture correction work, just getting guys functioning better as human beings and athletes. A bit of mobility, not crazy amounts, but enough to kind of keep their body functioning and recovering well. The big problem I find with jiu-jitsu athletes and people in any kind of combat sport is they try to turn strength and conditioning into competition. So they feel like they didn't do a good workout unless they're fucked after it, unless they're lying on the ground in a ball. Whereas it's not, I don't really train that way myself. I train to improve the structure that I have. And when I'm on the mats, I put the hard work in, and I'm dead after rolling. But when I'm lifting weights, it's not the same. I'd lift heavy-ish and I'd try to get myself stronger, but I want to leave a little bit in the tank so that when I go to roll the next day, I'm able to roll. You kind of have to find the right amount and work with that and not go overkill, especially as an older athlete. That's a big issue for people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny you kind of said that as well. I read only something. He's a strength and conditioning coach and PT. He's from Taekwondo himself, but he had something on, I think it's on his Instagram page. Like, if you're an athlete, you nearly need to work on, in the weight room, work on your 80% repetitive max, right? 80% repetition, give your 80% efforts, and your max efforts in reps and stuff. That's for sports specific. You need to work at like 80% in the weight room. And
yeah, a lot of guys just kill themselves in the weight room, and they do crazy difficult circuits. A lot of guys watch The Ultimate Fighter too much back in the day, and they see these guys killing themselves on the old airline bike and doing mad circuits and puking into the bin in the corner of the gym, and they think that's what they got to be doing, but it's not really. And especially if you're over 30, your ability to recover, like your training capacity is like a pint of water. There's only so many times you can spill some water out of it before it's gone. So you've only got X amount of water you can spill before the week is over, and you don't want to empty that jar completely. So that's what you got to do. You got to prioritize your sport specific training. So if you're walking into the gym to spar and you're exhausted and you're sparring at like 50% of what you could be doing, you're not really getting your body conditioned for those high intensity sparring that you're going to be doing when you compete. You need to be able to go in and you need to be able to spar and feeling good. You need to be able to step up through the gears and put a hard pace on people and withstand that pace. So your strength and conditioning should complement that. It should fix your weak spots and get you a bit stronger, get you a little bit more conditioned, but you should be putting in the majority of your hard work on the mats. But a lot of people sort of forget about that. They think strength and conditioning should be absolute murder on your body, whereas I don't, because I don't recover well if I do it that way. I've learned all these things the hard way over the years as well. You figure this out pretty soon.
Yeah, supplementary work, I suppose, is what it should be recognized as.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I find yoga is great as well. Like, I don't do huge amounts of it. I do short amounts of it most days, but it just helps you recover a lot because, especially our sport, it's quite compressive. You have people lying on top of you, and then when you're lifting weights, you got a bar on your back. You're lifting heavy deadlifting and stuff. So there's a lot of compressive force throughout your spine and your joints. And we're being folded up in all sorts of different angles when we're rolling in jiu-jitsu as well. So your body needs to decompress. Your spine will be very happy for you to actually stretch and relax and work on your breathing and open up your thoracic spine and feel, loosen things out a little bit better. Like, I'm not crazy on huge amounts of static stretching because you don't need crazy amounts of flexibility for jiu-jitsu, because flexibility on its own is no real use in that type of sport. Like, flexibility is your ability to stretch out while you're passive and relaxed. Whereas in jiu-jitsu, if we're being folded over, we're not passive. We need strength in these positions. So you need to be able to improve the movement quality, but it has to be active, not passive. So mobility drills are great. There's plenty of stuff you can do that's not just relaxed, passive stretching. You can work through plenty of yoga positions, being able to breathe, but being able to move properly as well. So just getting your hips and your spine used to doing things like that in small doses is good. Take care of them, because the old backs are a big problem in jiu-jitsu. A lot of people pick up back problems.
Yeah. In terms
You
of
guys probably get a lot of knee issues, do you?
Sorry, a lot of what?
In your sport, would there be a lot of knee issues or hip? Would they be the main problems?
Knees, hips, ankles, that kind of stuff, I think tends to be what tends to go.
Yeah, because it's quite ballistic and you're constantly just moving and you're on your feet a lot, isn't it? So those joints are absorbing, I think it's about 80% of your body weight through those joints a lot of the time. So it's quite tough on them, especially if you're constantly moving. So over time they do get worn out and they do break down. So same in our sport, you have specific areas of the body that take the most punishment. Like I said, the shoulders, the backs, and the knees just get they get a bit messed up over time. If you're at it long enough, it happens, So they have to be taken care of. I mean, my plan is to still be able to roll in 10 years or 15 years. So like I said earlier, I want to still be able to maybe compete the odd time when I'm that age as well. So it'll be a nice novel thing to do. So yeah, you got to start looking after them now. Is the thing, you know.
Yeah. Like then, how would you go about condition then for BJJ? Because obviously, if you're a stand-up sport, you can practice it. You can train obviously your general cardio base from running or the bike or whatever. But then you have like if sport specific, you could be hitting the bag. You could have your intervals on the bag or on the pads, and that'll train, you know, your condition for striking. But like, what would you do in terms of them for jiu-jitsu for that kind of conditioning? Is it just roll, just sparring, the rounds in, or is there anything else like that you
Yeah,
would
I
add?
find that that's the best way. And as I was saying earlier, if you are being honest in your rounds and picking the right guys and maybe doing little things like starting at a bad position or challenging yourself to outscore this other guy when you roll with him, that can make such a difference, you know. Um, I would do strength work, mobility work, a couple of times a week. Like if I'm at the moment, like that's most of what I'm doing. I'm doing a little bit of jiu-jitsu, but usually when there's competitions on the horizon, it's the other way around. I'll be doing jiu-jitsu maybe 4 days a week, and I might do strength work twice a week, you know. I'll do a light bit of mobility most days, just more to loosen out everything that hurts and that's sore. And I will, when I'm in the run up to a competition, those kind of 6 weeks in the run up to a competition, I'll do a bit of low intensity aerobic work. So that might be 40 minutes of just kind of steady state work where I'm keeping my heart rate at a comfortable level. That's just to build that aerobic base. So you've got your three different energy systems. You've got your aerobic base, okay, and then you've got your alactic one, which is those short dynamic bursts. And I'm talking like less than 10 seconds. So if you're training those in interval training, you might be on a assault bike or a rower. It might be like a 10-second high intensity sprint, lots of resistance, and you might spend 1 or 2 minutes active recovery. So you can do little bits like that if you need to work on that sort of energy system. Like it depends on the individual. Some people don't need to work on that. They just need to fill up the gas tank. They need to work on the low intensity, the aerobic base. And the middle ground sort of your glycolytic system, it's like your ability to go and stop and go and stop and go and stop. You get a lot of that if you're rolling properly. You know, you'll get your body just conditioned to that. You know, be ready to push that pace when you roll. Make sure you're putting those efforts in. So for someone like me, whose your time is limited to fit everything in, you sort of have to pick what you need to work on most and do that. Whereas if you have someone who's maybe a full-time athlete, you can spend a little bit of time working on everything over the week. You know, you get guys who have the freedom to train twice a day, 6 days a week. Fair play to them, but unfortunately, I've got a job and a family to worry about. But yeah, mostly what I would do is for me, I just do a little bit of aerobic, lower lower level energy system work. So that's I might be on the bike, on the rowing machine, comfortable level where you can speak. But what you're doing there is you're improving your aerobic base, and that improves your ability to recover between fights. When you have multiple fights, that's a big difference. The better your aerobic base, the faster you'll recover. But if we're going to the gym and we're doing 8 rounds of rolling, 10 rounds of rolling, I'll recover quicker between rounds because I've worked on my aerobic base. I didn't have to do lots of really hard puke in the bin type of work. I just had to do some steady state cardio to build that up. And then when I'm doing my strength work, there'll be a bit of dynamic work in there, kettlebell swings, ball slams. So I'm getting that little bit of work on the higher end of that scale. You know, you kind of got to pick and choose your weapons. Running is good as well. You know, it's great. When you're sparring hard a lot, I tend to not run, not I tend to gravitate a little bit away from running. Joints are already taking a beating. Like if I'm sparring 4 days a week, the knees and the low back are probably going to feel it then. If I add in a couple of runs a week, it can be tough. Whereas, yeah, if I'm doing a little bit less rolling like I'm doing now, running's fine. I throw it in there and I find it comfortable enough. So, yeah, it always depends on the individual, you know.
Yeah. Is there many like jiu-jitsu specific strength and conditioning coaches, or do you find, because I think a lot of times, especially in any sports, it's you go onto maybe YouTube or whatever and you look up at like what the bodybuilders are doing, and that's what most people run with. So would there be anybody would there be many people, I suppose, jiu-jitsu specific coaches that people go to and have a specific program, or would that be the same as, you know, just go to YouTube and look at what the bodybuilders are doing?
Yeah, I've seen a few around through social media. I've gotten to know quite a few guys in the UK and stuff that are doing that. Like there's guys that are working a lot with MMA fighters and grapplers. And like myself, I'm doing a good bit of it here as well. Not a whole lot around Ireland. One or two people I know do a little bit with some guys, but no one that really specialises in it. that I can think of off the top of my head. Maybe I'm just forgetting one or two of them. But big one that'll be really well known would be Phil Daru. He was with American Top Team in the States, so he did like Dustin Poirier and Junior Seagano, those guys in the UFC. He trains a glut of UFC level fighters. So, and he trains quite a few jiu-jitsu guys as well. There's quite a few around. If you do your research online, anyone who's listening does jiu-jitsu, give us a shout if you need to dig out. But I love it because I already have my sort of my business in place, and I have all my clients. So I kind of train the jiu-jitsu guys as me sort of me fun project. I started it as a little project, and like I said earlier, I got a few guys that just got in as sponsored athletes. I trained them for a few months in the run up to the Europeans, and everybody did fucking fantastically at that competition. And it gave me a great chance to sort of figure out what it was like to work with guys and get feedback from them and how they were feeling in the run up to tournaments, what worked and what didn't. So I found that was great, and I've just kept that going forward. Usually at this time of the year, I'd be running like an online group where we'd be starting now with the view to getting ready for Europeans January 2021. But we don't know if it's even going to be on. So I'm going to wait another month or two, see if we get some inkling that might be on. I'll probably start running something like that. I'll set up what we did the last couple of years. We set up a private Facebook group, picked a group of athletes that were going to do it. A few guys signed up, and we just kept everyone in a little group, and I just kept them updated day in, day out. This is what we're doing this week, guys, and give me feedback. And we chop and change each person's individual program to suit their workload. Really good. A lot of guys are more conscious of it now, and I think when people are getting a little bit older as well, that's why I like working with masters athletes. They're more likely to take on board what you're saying. They're less likely then to go on try and break their bodies down in the gym because they're already riddled with injuries, so they need that little bit of guidance in that respect, So it's fun. It's fun. Yeah, it's nice to work with people that are sort of that think along the way, along the same lines that you do. They want to compete as well, and they want to prepare for competitions. It's exciting,
Yeah, they don't have the ignorance of youth on their side.
Yeah. You get a lot of guys like that. I've worked with a couple of fighters and stuff that were younger, and they don't listen. I went off and I did like fucking 15 rounds of sparring last night. Yeah, but yesterday was rest day. You told me it was rest day. Yeah, but then no, it's fine. Like some guys just they want to do it all, and they're broken down. Then they come in and they can't do anything. So it's guys who are a bit older have a bit more common sense. There's most times they can listen to you a bit more than the younger ones, and they'll be less likely to be kind of out on the lash all weekend and stand you up for a session and all that kind of stuff. So it's good to work with guys who'll put in the work and they're reliable. One of the stipulations I had when I first did that online group, as I said, I trained the guys for free that first year, and what I did was I said, right guys, anyone who's signing up, just apply to me, shoot me a message. I'm taking on 3 guys. They need to be purple belt or higher, and they need to be over the age of 30, because I wasn't dealing with anyone who was, just young, free and single, likely to just be on the lash half the time and not do the work. I wanted guys who I knew, and guys who I knew would be taking it serious, guys who I knew had competed at that level multiple times. So it was good to work with guys who I knew just had that dedication. They'll be there trying to win a medal, so they're going to do the work if I work with them, and coaching's a two-way street. You need guys that aren't just going to take a workout off you and do it blindly. You need to kind of go back and forth with them. They'll tell you how they're feeling and how they're recovering. Like, what can we change here? What do you like here? What's working for you and what's not? And it's the same if you're coaching an athlete in any sport as well. You sort of just need that little bit of feedback, and you need a good relationship, not just a dictatorship.
Yeah, I think even sometimes you see I suppose maybe with the older athletes is that they can be willing to offer that information that maybe younger, it's like, oh well, they don't want to say I'm not feeling the best today. Like they don't want to say, oh, I'm tired, or that session was heavy there. Like it's kind of, you want to have that, I suppose, nearly bravado and say, no, I'm fine. I can handle all the sessions.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you need a bit of honesty and a bit of proper feedback. Like I tend to listen to my body. Like there's days like today, I just wake up, and there's days I'll just know this is the day I'm going to have a rest day. And I've learned over the years, don't, like I used to go, ignore that. No, I need to push through on this. I need to train today. And then you go and you do it. And then the following day you go train again and something gets injured, you know? So you kind of learn over time. You need to, you learn to listen to your body and when to respond. And I'm going to spar tomorrow, and the body was exhausted today. I'm up since 5:30 this morning. Hands were full. I could have squeezed in a workout at one point. I'm like, no, just chill. Just chill. You have a lot on your plate today, and you have a tough training session tomorrow. Listen to your body, do that, and I'll feel better for it tomorrow, you know? So when you get older, you do have that common sense. So that's why I like working with guys like that, guys who just they know their own bodies, and they'll be able to work with you and not just kind of try and do your whole program that you sent them, try and do it all inside 2 days rather than spread it out over the week, you know? So it's, yeah, you gotta play it properly and treat your body well if you want to be in the game for a long time.
Yeah, I've had that. I was only talking to, I had somebody else on last year or the other day, and I was saying to them as well, like, I used to, when I was, I suppose, 18, 19, 20, I could come into it and not warm up and just go straight in, and I could kick into a session, I kick grand or whatever, and no injuries, it wouldn't be a problem. But as I'm starting to get like a 25 now, but I was starting to kind of feel that if I don't warm up, it's a fine line. It's like I could get away with not warming up, I could get through the session, be grand, but if I don't warm up and get loose, it could easily go the other way, and I could be injured. And next thing you're in a heap for the next week or two trying to recover. So it's kind of like that. You can get away with it for so long, but slowly but surely things start catching up with you. You have to be a little bit smarter.
That's it, yeah. And it's just applying a few basic common sense principles to your training. Like I've always been a fan of the idea that, like, the earlier you start treating your body like you're 40, then the longer you'll be able to perform for. Like, so like what I need to do now, I can't just run in and warm up. I need to if I arrive in, the jiu-jitsu class is on, I'll take 5-10 minutes to go through just a nice mobility routine for the full body. I'll move around and then I'll jump into the class and I can go then. I'm all good. And I need to do a little bit of recovery work. I need to rehydrate. I need to get proper sleep. And if I don't do those things, I'm not going to feel good. I'm not going to be able to train properly then. My performance level over the rest of the week will drop drastically. So like the earlier you start sort of doing all those little things, the longer you'll probably be able to keep going in the sport. You know, it'll stand to you further down the line rather than accruing a load of injuries while you're young and then going, oh Jesus, I wrecked my body over the last 10 years. Now I'll start looking after myself, you know. But we all do it the wrong way around. We all learn the hard way.
Yeah, I suppose it is like that. You don't listen. You have to, like you said, you have to learn the hard way. You have to do it yourself before you kind of realize, like it.
Yeah. Like you skin in the game. I learned all these things from doing them the wrong way around. And like people that think like all my Instagram, I just post stuff, you know, pictures of me training. People probably should train like a maniac. It's not really the case. Like I train as much as I need to train, but I don't overtrain. I'm very wary of overtraining. You know, I find the right balance and I just work within that balance. That's all I do. And it's consistent. Like there's not a week goes by over the years where I'm not doing something and training. But it's just, I'm not wearing my body out too much. There's weeks when I do hit the point where I'm a bit worn out, but most times it's not like that. I'm not just like flat out twice a day, 6 days a week. I am finding the right balance that works for me and staying with that. And I'm just being consistent, you know. So yeah, you can see a lot of people on Instagram look like they're non-stop training, but like you gotta read between the lines. Maybe they're just training smart. Maybe they're looking after themselves, and that's why they're able to get in good shape and able to perform well at certain levels of competition. And that, you know, you gotta you gotta find the right way to do it rather than just going through it blindly. You know, it's not all about just hard work. It's about smart work and hard work.
Yeah, like that. You can't just take get the full picture from Instagram. You know, a couple of videos of what a workout doesn't give the full picture. Even the exercises that somebody's doing, like it might look ridiculous or it might look like, oh, it's a game changer, but maybe you don't know why they're doing those exercises and that type of stuff. So, you know, Instagram doesn't give you the full picture.
Yeah, and you see some mad shit on there anyway. You know, like it's just a gallery for showing off a little bit, really. You know, so yeah, you're as well off getting your advice from someone who knows what they're talking about. Like, you know, from Taekwondo, basically, if someone trains Taekwondo 3 times a week in, week out, for 10 years, they're going to be very good. Whereas you'll get people that'll come along and they'll try to train every day, and then they get pissed off and bored, or they get sick of it, or they'll pick up injuries and they'll go away for a while, and then they'll come back 6 months later, do it for another while, disappear off again. Those people sort of never really progress. Whereas if you're just like you're week in, week out, sometimes you might only get in once or twice a week. Sometimes it might be more, but if you're consistent and you rarely ever miss a week for years on end, those are the guys that are just they're the guys that are just the best. You know, they're the guys that have the most knowledge, the most skill. It doesn't happen by accident. It's consistency over it's long-term consistency over short-term intensity.
Yeah, definitely. I think actually we'll nearly wrap it up there. But before we do, I tend to ask everybody if they had to pick your favorite fighter, who would you pick? It could be a jiu-jitsu player, it could be, I don't know, a boxer, it could be an MMA fighter. But if you had to pick a favorite fighter, who would you pick?
That's a good one. It always changes. I think after the weekend, I'm going to go with Rose Namajunas. Did you see her fighting at the weekend?
Yeah.
I fucking love watching Rose Namajunas, and every time she fights, I always just go, holy shit, this girl is good. Like, and she's just likable. There's no bullshit with her. Just cut off all her hair, keep it simple. Because people, I think, were commenting on her being real pretty and stuff back in the day. She looked nice. She had a nice little haircut and stuff, and she was just known as that good looking one. And then she just went, fuck this, cut her hair off, keep it simple, live a simple life. Don't get glammed up, don't turn up always covered up in makeup. Just keep it simple. Be a proper martial artist. And when she fights, it's just the fights she had with Joanna Jędrzejczyk were just amazing. She knocked the fuck out of her in the first one, and the second was 5-round war. The skill level is great. I can't wait to see her fighting. She's going to fight Zhang Weili. Did you see Zhang Weili and Joanna?
Yeah.
That was just amazing. She's probably on the list as well. The female fighters in that division, scary. Like Jessica Andrade, who fought her the other day. Like that's a division of killers. Like, and the skill level is higher than it is in a lot of the men's divisions. And yeah, I think she's top of the list right now. It changes. We'll see how the fights over the next week go. There's quite a few fights coming up, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a fight card tomorrow night, so that'd be good as well. One thing I had forgotten because it's been a while since Rose fought. I had forgotten how good she was, and I was like, shit, she's fucking class again. You know what I mean? I just had forgotten because it's been so long since she fought.
Everything is just so clean and calm and technical. I loved her first fight with Joanna when she knocked her out, because Joanna was doing the whole intimidation, bully tactics thing. And she just kept her cool. And I remember seeing an interview. She had this mantra that she was saying to herself over and over. It was something along the lines of conditioning. Oh, it was like 3 or 4 words: calm, conditioning, champion, something like that, you know. And she just kept mumbling it to herself over and over, and some prayer that she was saying. And Joanna was screaming in her face. She was just keeping the cool. And she just stayed focused on her game. And every shot was landing with precision. And she knocked her out on her ass. And it was spectacular, yeah. So, like, yeah, I've always liked watching her, because she's just the skill level is just terrifyingly good, you know. So, yeah, she's top of the pile right now, definitely.
Yeah, a good pick. But I think we'll leave it there. I've really enjoyed the chat, and I suppose thanks a million for coming on.
Awesome. Yeah, I enjoyed that. Nice one.
Yeah, I am looking to get a few more jiu-jitsu people on, so it was good. You've kind of been the first one, really, I suppose, from that background. Well, I had Gary Rooney on last week as well. He's a bit of a jiu-jitsu background as well. So,
love Gary Rooney. Yeah, big fan of Gary Rooney. We have great old scraps. He batters me a few times. He's a cool kid.
But yeah, so he was on. So I suppose maybe you could say he was the first, even the second. But I'm hoping to have a few more on and get through the martial arts. So yeah, thanks for coming on.
That'd be great, Jay.
Yeah, so
nice one, man.
Take care. All the best.
Cheers, bud. Take care.